Having this idea of us studying the concept of the nature of motion, the body in motion, designing for movement, thinking about ways to explore and express movement in new and different ways is our point. And I think through this collaboration, you'll see lots of different ways of us exploring, looking at, and trying to define a new expression and new space in regard to designing around motion mobility.
I design through making. It is my understanding of the physical world and the physical materials and the properties of them, learning them, discovering what they can do and what they can become. My work relates to the human body. Have as little impact on the human body as possible. They are there to support the body, to elevate the body. Embrace this idea of freedom of movement. Nike's world is all about movement. It's a very mobile process. There's a huge amount of movement in the way that I design. I want there to be surprise, an element of surprise. In a way, this will be one of the purest forms of communication that I've ever exercised in my work, because although I have manipulated and transformed the materials on the underside in order for them to perform and move the way that they do, it is also just very simply a block of material.
All my work is researching, taking material, finding out what I can do with it, and then trying to make a bigger statement or a bigger piece with that material. For me, innovation starts with having a gut feeling that there's a possibility to do something. If you just think ahead and you think of everything before you actually even start working, and you want to be sure not to fail, then you're not gonna innovate anything. Total freedom of motion is when you can decide to move or not. The best thing you get from me is when you have me something what I like, and research is something that I like. I'm not very good at finishing things. There were just a lot of ideas coming together. First there was the idea of making a net where you could rest like a hammock, or a net like a lazy chair where you could lay down or recline. So sort of get the total freedom of motion in that way. The thing I thought I could add to Flyknit is I started investigating if I could integrate weaving or basket weaving into a product, taking fibers and making with that fiber a whole product. That combined with making a place where I can rest, I came up with the pot idea.
As a designer, I really see that there's often too many possibilities. We generally try to sort of see things through an abstract filter, as if you were removing anything that's unnecessary and focusing only on the most essential part of the project. Our idea was really to explore interactive and temporary ways of seating, creating these sort of temporary situations where somebody can take a pause, rest. They're not designed for any specific area.
The inspiration really was the word balance, in a way, that we tried to figure out how to combine a seat with a balancing act.
To be innovative requires an analysis of the contemporary situation, the contemporary state, and then to allow that research to create the object.
For me, design has always been finding that intersection between digital and physical that people connect with, whether it's in a building, furniture, or even a small industrial object. people's expectation for things has changed. They want stuff smarter, they want it to know them, and they want it to do things for them. Everybody always thinks I just like forms, but really I like performance. I've always been about performance, whether it's in a building or a boat or a chair. You know, Nike, they, for me, are the most digital company on earth. They really think digital in terms of materials, sustainability, design. I love them because of their digital nature. This project really came out of my affection for that digital approach that their design team has. One of the things that is exciting is we're making an object which is hard and soft continuously. So it has the structure you need of a rigid material, and when you don't need that structure, it goes into a fabric. The form is really custom formed to an athlete's body to get as much of their body in contact with the surface as possible.
The definition of art perhaps is it's not functional, whereas design has to be functional. And there's the difference there, but you get good representation of art within design and good representation of design within art. Exciting opportunity collaborating with Nike on a project like this was to be able to work with a very, very advanced technical sort of knit knowledge group of people who could really translate my idea into a reality. Fly knit is a fantastic material. You know, it's got so many potential opportunities. It's very comfortable. It really kind of encloses the body. It maps itself around a form and a shape brilliantly. I mean, the shoes are a great example of this. So why not take this on to the next stage where you can really integrate a knitting technology into a sling on a chair? I've always been a big fan of Boccioni's work since I was a student studying at art school. His work was dealing with movement and industrialization of mechanisms, and it was a very important shift in art and a very fascinating period. So I wanted to focus on that and just work around that principle, learning from that but pushing it on to the next level.
My mind went to more obvious places first, I think, as a first pass. So I thought, okay, well, most motion is natural. Like, that's sort of an inherent quality. So I started thinking about it a little bit more of what's an interesting aspect or sort of way in that feels related to my work, but also maybe is a little bit unexpected. And I started thinking about slowness, and I started thinking about the speed of plant life. I'm very fascinated about how, whether it's seeds or other aspects of plants that end up traveling around the world, but in ways that are so different from humans. And so when I went back to creating a piece which is similar to my other lighting in some respects, but very different in the way that it has much more, there's much more room for play, and these chains that we added in are the opposite of a really rigid structure, and then started experimenting with programming motors and ways to activate some subtle motion, and had great fun experimenting. It took a while to get it right.
Each one of us, be it an artist, be it a designer, be it any kind of creative person, has to set their own kind of, sets their own boundaries, sets their own kind of limitations in a way. While the art obviously doesn't subscribe to anything, you know, the artist is free. I try to work with many different materials, many different people, collaboration, many different techniques, and I think it's about opening and creating possibilities. So I was thinking about, you know, what can you do with knitting? So I think then somehow we came to this idea of creating also a kind of a base layer where these drums could sit on. So I think it's about also creating a space, not just this one object, but also creating an environment. With this rhythm project, for me, it's about how do people gather in a way, what do they do? Could they make music? There's kind of a wave of sound kind of echoing out of this creates a rhythm, it animates other people to join, create kind of a wave of sound, of rhythm that, yeah, maybe goes through the city and spreads out all the way to Rio de Janeiro.
When we have to work on a new project, we are not thinking it's a design project or it's a graphic project, but we think on a different level. We try to look at it from outside and give our own interpretation.
It's good in the sculpture to have a really defined color. Red, in a way, is the color of what is inside our body.
Yeah, the first idea that came to our mind was like to have a sort of moving sculpture. The most important part of this project was like to freeze the moment. We wanted like to magnify the idea of this body, and we actually translate the body in like the gesture of the body in something that are just straight lines or curved lines. So the combination of these elements came along as a proper sculpture.
Everything is designed, whether you're making art or not.
For me, design is everything that is not made by nature itself.
Design always had very clear limitations in terms of briefing. You know, you work with someone, it's a clear brief.
The process is the design. It's not actually the object itself.
My work begins as this investigation into a singular material in its purest form.
We want to celebrate the body of the athletes.
Design for me I see as about the relationship of humans and objects.
Free and natural motion is all about lightweight, flexible, and close to the body.
And a great chance for us to dream a bit, explore a lot, begin a dialogue, and start a conversation about the ideas around the body and motion.